Former JPMorgan employee files a lawsuit against a senior executive. The claims are shocking. The bank denies them. The executive denies them. But before a court ever decides what happened, the story is already everywhere. And that's the real story here. Because on Wall Street, a crisis doesn't start when someone loses in court. Sometimes it starts the moment the headline goes live. JPMorgan Chase is one of the most powerful banks in the world, manages trillions of dollars, employs hundreds of thousands of people, and is led by one of the most recognized CEOs in modern finance. So when a lawsuit involving a JPMorgan executive hits the internet, it doesn't stay small. It becomes a reputational event, not because the case has been proven, not because the facts have been decided, but because the public doesn't wait for court. The public reacts to the story. And in this case, the story moved fast. A former employee accused a JP Morgan executive of harassment, threats, coercion, and retaliation. The executive's attorneys says the claims are completely false. JP Morgan says it investigated and does not believe the claims have merit. So what happens when a legal complaint becomes a viral internet story before anyone knows what the court will decide? That is today's capital movement. To understand why this went viral, you have to understand the setting. This is not a small company. This is JP Morgan Chase, a bank with global reach, massive influence, and a reputation built on control. Finance is an industry where trust matters more than almost anything. People trust banks with money, careers, deals, investments, confidential information, and access to power. So when a lawsuit alleges misconduct inside that kind of institution, the stakes are bigger than one workplace dispute. It raises questions people immediately want answered. What happened? Who knew? Did the company investigate? Was anyone protected? Was anyone ignored? And most importantly, what is true? But the last question is the slowest one to answer. The legal system moves carefully, the internet does not. According to the reports and filings described in the article, the plaintiff is a former JP Morgan employee identified in the same documents as John Doe. He accused a JP Morgan executive, Lorna Hajdini, of inappropriate workplace conduct, harassment, threats, and retaliation. The allegations are serious, but it is important to say this clearly. These are allegations. They have not been proven in court. Hajdini's attorneys have denied them strongly, saying she has never had an inappropriate relationship with the plaintiff and that the claims are fabricated. JP Morgan also pushed back. The company said it investigated and does not believe there is merit to the claims. That creates the central tension of the story. One side is saying the alleged conduct happened, the other side is saying it did not. And JP Morgan is saying it looked into the matter and does not believe the claims are supported. At this stage, the courtroom has not answered the question, but the media cycle has already started asking. Then something unusual happened. The lawsuit first made headlines, then the complaint was reportedly returned for correction and temporarily pulled from public view. For a moment, it looked like the story might slow down, but it didn't. The plaintiff refiled a corrected complaint, and with that, the story came back. That is the key moment, because in a normal corporate controversy, the first headline is the spark, but the second filing is what keeps the fire burning. It tells the media this is not going away. It tells the company this will require a response. It tells the internet there is more to look at. And once that happens, the story changes. It is no longer just a lawsuit, it becomes a public test of credibility. Here's what makes this story different from a typical legal dispute. Most lawsuits are complicated. They involve documents, deadlines, claims, counterclaims, motions, and months of years of waiting. But online, none of that matters at first. People see these things, a famous bank, a senior executive, a shocking accusation. That combination moves. It moves through search results, it moves through social media, it moves through group chats, it moves through reaction videos. And once a story starts moving that way, the company is no longer only dealing with a legal problem, it is dealing with a perception problem. That does not mean the allegations are true. It does not mean they are false. It means the story has entered a different arena. Court is about evidence, the internet is about attention, and attention does not wait. JP Morgan's response was direct. The company said it conducted an investigation and does not believe the claims have merit. That matters because large companies usually do not want to say too much during active litigation. They have to protect themselves legally. They have to avoid saying something that can be used against them. They have to balance public reassurance with legal caution. So when JP Morgan says it investigated and does not believe the claims have merit, it is trying to do two things at once. First, defend the institution. Second, signal control. That is what major companies do in moments like this. They try to contain the story, then they try to make clear that there was a process, then try to reassure employees, investors, clients, and the public that the situation is being handled. But the hard part is a statement can answer a headline, it cannot always stop a story. Hajdini's attorneys also denied the allegations strongly. They said that she categorically denies the claims. She said she never had a romantic relationship or sexual relationship with the plaintiff. They they said she never gave him drugs. They said the accusations are false and damaging to her reputation. That is important because there are two reputations at stake here. There is JP Morgan's reputation as a company, and there is an individual reputation of the executive named in the lawsuit. For a company, a viral lawsuit can become a temporary crisis. For a person, it can follow them forever. Even if the case is dismissed, even if the claims are never proven, even if a court eventually rules in their favor, search results can become their own kind of punishment. That is one of the strange realities of modern public life. The legal system may wait, the internet says decide now. This is why the JP Morgan story matters beyond the details of the lawsuit. It shows how fragile corporate control has become. For decades, big institutions manage reputation through press releases, legal teams, internal investigations, and carefully worded statements. This still matters. But now, a story can jump from a court filing to a tabloid headline to a social media feed in hours. And once people start reacting, the company is no longer in full control of the narrative. That is the real shift. The court may take months or years to sort out the facts, but the public forms an impression immediately. For a company like JP Morgan, that matters, not only because one lawsuit destroys the bank, it won't, but because every major institution runs on confidence. Confidence from employees, confidence from clients, confidence from investors, confidence from the public. And when a story like this spreads, even if it is denied, it forces the company to defend that defense. So, what is the capital moment here? It is not the alleged incident, it is not the first lawsuit, it is the corrected filing. That is the moment the story refused to disappear. The plaintiff doubled down, the executive attorneys doubled down, JP Morgan doubled down, and the public attention grew. That is when the situation became more than a legal complaint. It became a test of reputation under pressure. Because in modern business, the most dangerous moment is often not when the facts are settled, it is when the facts are still being fought over, but everyone is already watching. As the reporting provided, the case is ongoing. The allegations have not been proven in court. JP Morgan denies that the claims have merit. Hajdini's attorneys deny wrongdoing and say the claims are fabricated. The plaintiff continues to pursue the case. That means the final outcome is still unknown. But one outcome has already happened. The story went public, the names entered headlines, the internet reacted, and JP Morgan has to respond. That is the part the company fears. Not just losing in court, losing control of the story before the court ever speaks. There's one there is a reason stories like this spread so quickly. They sit at the intersection of power, money, status, and trust. A Wall Street Bank, a senior executive, a former employee, a lawsuit, a denial, a public watching before the facts settled. That combination is built for the modern internet. But it also raises a serious question. How should people think about a story when the allegations are serious, but the case is unresolved? The answer is not to ignore it, and it is not to assume guilt. The answer is to pay attention carefully, to separate claims from proven facts, to watch how institutions respond, and to understand that in business, reputation can move faster than truth. That is what makes this case worth following, not because we know how it ends, but because we are watching what happens when one of the most powerful banks in the world is being pulled into a story it cannot fully control. And in today's world, that may be one of the most valuable lessons of all. This is Capital Moments, the stories behind money, power, and decisions that change everything. Subscribe for the next one.